Hi folks, this is Jared Axelrod, but we're not starting the episode quite yet. Before it starts for real, I just want to say a few things about Patreon. I say that you can support the voice of Free Planet X through Patreon at the end of every episode, but I'm not really sure everybody knows what I mean when I say that. And by that I mean Thal, my producer, is not sure everybody knows what I mean when I say that. So, personally, I like to think of Patreon as a subscription service, but it's a subscription where you're paying it forward so that many people can use the service. This show isn't behind a paywall and it's ad-free, and that's going to continue no matter what happens with the Patreon. So, you might ask, why bother supporting it at all? And that's a fair question, and I have a fair answer. Because the more successful the Patreon is, the more stuff everybody gets. If you haven't checked the Patreon page recently at patreon.com/Axelrod, you may want to do so. Milestones have been rejiggered a bit to accommodate the new twice-monthly schedule, which is something we're going to stick to for the foreseeable future, and the needs of the new format. I had a milestone in there that was about full cast episodes, which is kind of what we're doing now, so that is gone on the way. We've reached the first milestone, which means an extra long episode is coming in December, and I'm very excited about that. It's got a great concept. But we could also have more extra long episodes. We could have original art to go with each episode. And we could have videos where I talk about all the weird stuff I find in researching the show. For example, I'd love to share some of the absolutely horrifying things I found out when I was working on the Halloween episode. That stuff it's messed up. Those are things that everybody could get. Also, folks who support the voice of Free Planet X get access to exclusive content, behind-the-scene videos, hilarious outtakes, and they also get to influence upcoming episodes. That is why, in the aforementioned Halloween episode, there are both werewolves and tentacle monsters. I take supporter suggestions very seriously. So, to sum up, you don't have to pay for the show. But if you wanted to pay for the show, everybody, including you, would get much more of the Voice of Free Planet X content you've come to enjoy. You can support the show at patreon.com/Axelrod. There's also a link at the Voice of Free Planet X website, planetx.libsyn.com. All right, Thal is motioning that I need to wrap this up and get started with the show proper, so here we go. This episode is going to be a little different. I'm devoting it all to an interview I did with Huxley Branson. You know the name Huxley Branson, even if you don't know why you know it. Huxley is best known as the founder of the Brave New World group, which comprises more than 400 companies. At the age of 16, his first business was a magazine called Venture. At 22, he opened up a chain of record stores, Brave New World Records, later known as Huxley Megastores. The Huxley brand grew rapidly as he set up Huxley Air, which became Huxley Interplanetary, and expanded the Brave New World's music label. According to those who keep track of such things, Huxley Branson has an estimated net worth of $6.9 billion. Huxley Branson has been a bit of a figure in the news recently. He created Huxley Interplanetary, achieved orbit in a personal spacecraft that he piloted himself, and then not long after landing, completely demolished Huxley Interplanetary. Said it was no longer a company, no longer something he would strive for, no longer something anybody would work on. He has refused to talk to the press until, well, now, on my show. Thal is endlessly amused by this. I imagine Thal does not believe that I earned such an interview. Either that or Thal just finds someone like Huxley Branson being in space funny. But I don't think any of us, not Huxley, not myself, and certainly not Thal, expected the interview that we ended up with. This is Jared Axelrod, and you are listening to the voice of Free Planet X. Huxley Branson, welcome to the voice of Free Planet X.
Call me Huxley, and thank you. It's good to be here. I read your books.
I'm sorry?
Your books. The ones you wrote. The ones about the murder in Kansas and the people who don't go outside and the dog trainers and the butler school. When you said you wanted to interview me, I read your books.
Usually it's the interviewer that does the research.
I quite like research. It's important to, well, gather data, I suppose. I've always had a passion for it. I really enjoyed... Can I ask you a question? Is that all right?
It's all right.
Your book, the one about the murder.
Shattered Mirror.
Yes, that one. I really enjoyed the way you said about detailing the community that surrounded that poor murdered family. Was that hard, capturing those people, gaining their trust? They let you in. It must have been hard.
Interviews are always hard.
I've noticed that. I'm sure I'm not making this one any easier. You know, when I first started giving interviews, a friend of mine told me I should record everything, so that way the reporter would have their recording and I would have mine, so that if any slander arises, I could refute it.
Are you recording this now?
No need. This friend, I don't want to use his name, but you've seen his movies, you know him. This friend, he was one of those types, you know, the kind who look at a mirror and think it's a window. He's afraid of being abused because that's what he would do, given half the chance. Record the interview yourself, he would say. That's the only weapon you have against the press. That's how he thinks. Weapons, fighting. So of course he thinks that's what everyone else thinks too.
Sounds like a tough guy to be friends with.
If it was easy to be friends with someone, it wouldn't matter that you were. But back to interviews. They do seem difficult, which is funny because I always thought people like to talk about themselves.
They don't. People talk around themselves. It's not easy to get people to be vulnerable. In Shattered Mirror, that was an extremely insulated community. Farmers, you know.
I don't know any farmers. I should, but I don't.
Well, all right, they're people who spend a lot of time by themselves, or with just a few other people. They're unsure about outsiders. They're worried you're going to take something from them. You have to give first. I probably told my life story more times than I am honestly comfortable with. Those people in the middle of nowhere in Kansas are probably more intimate with parts of my life than my therapist is.
You have to give them something.
Yep.
Is that what you're doing now? Letting me ask you questions, giving me something?
I like to think of it as reverse hospitality. I come into your life, but I come bearing gifts.
So did the Greeks.
That's not the metaphor I would use.
I'm just saying that didn't end up well for Troy.
Well, horses are always a loaded proposition. Now, unless you have any more questions...
No, let's proceed. Well, one.
One?
If I may abuse your reverse hospitality a little more.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Writing the book about the murder.
Shattered Mirror.
I'm sorry, writing Shattered Mirror. No, more accurately, researching Shattered Mirror. To talk to all those people about the murder of that poor boy. To do that so soon after your son's death, it must have been difficult.
You have done your research.
I've overstepped.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I've overstepped.
You haven't. Well, all right, you have, but that's all right. What do you think it was like?
I couldn't have done it. I would have stopped.
The man who financed his own trip into space would have stopped.
Is that a dig?
It's just an observation. You don't strike me as someone who stops.
I am now. I'm dismantling Huxley Interplanetary. No more space trips.
You saw something out there.
I did.
We'll have to get into that.
That's why I'm here. So believe me when I tell you I know when to stop, when it's going to be too much. That's part of the reason I agreed to this interview. I read your books, and I wanted to know how someone like you, who had been through what you had with your son, could go and then write, what was it? Shattered Mirror.
Oh, I had to write that book. I had to write that book because I had to research it. I had to understand how it could happen. The same reason you went into space, I imagine.
Oh, I went into space to meet aliens.
And how did that go?
Well, I was successful. I did meet some aliens. They contacted me in my craft. I think they were both impressed and amused by my ingenuity, kind of like if a child builds a working combustible engine out of Legos.
What were they like?
I see I made the right choice.
What?
You seem to be very accepting that aliens exist.
Oh, well, yeah. Story for another time. But yes, I don't doubt that we are not alone in the universe.
I hope I don't offend you when I say that this show was not my first choice for this interview, but the others, they
thought it was a publicity stunt.
Let me just say you're the first one not to ask for proof that I'm telling the truth.
Anyone who is looking for truth has never interviewed a small Kansas town about the social standing of its most recently deceased members. I don't believe in truth, okay? I do believe in a good story. Richest man on earth meets with aliens, that's a good story. So, what were they like?
They were glacial. You know your book, the one about the shut-ins?
Sealed in.
Right, Sealed In. I like that one. You get very poetic there, which is funny, because you wouldn't think that these tiny, grimy apartments would inspire poetry. I'm sorry, clearly you would. You did. I wouldn't. You have a line in there. People who have shrunk their world so much they could keep it in their pocket. Imagine some world traveler, someone who had seen the width and breadth of the planet, looking at one of those people who carry their universe around in their hand. It was like that when they looked at me.
So first contact is pity?
Isn't it always? You know what I find fascinating about all this? That no one believes me. I expected more people to believe me. I have a theory on this, if you'll allow me. You remember how in the mid-90s there was that wave of alien abduction stories?
Oh, sure. It seemed like there wasn't a lonely farmer in the entire Midwest who hadn't been taken up and probed.
Nowadays, not so much.
Why do you think that is?
We don't need aliens anymore. Not when people have Twitter and YouTube and podcasts and Periscope and Voibox and Winger and heaven knows what else. If people want to feel special, they can count their Instagram followers. What does alien contact change?
But you're different.
My good man, I was not contacted by aliens so that I might feel special.
Huxley, you've got jets emblazoned with your first name rocketing through the sky.
My point exactly. What does discovering aliens give me that I haven't already got?
That was my next question.
Was it really?
Not next, but it was on there. Yeah.
I read your books. You want to understand how things happen. Why do people murder or live in a tiny apartment and never come out? I'll tell you why. It's because we mistake our mirrors for windows. We think we know who everyone else is. We think we know. We're locked up in our own heads experiencing relentless stimuli that tells us that we are the center of the universe. Everything I experience tells me that I am different from you, that I am special, that everything is being performed for my benefit. Every second of every minute of every hour that ticks by reaffirms this. I am on the human adventure. I don't know what you're doing. I used to believe I was different. Anointed, you might say. I had amassed great wealth. I have, as you put it, got jets emblazoned with my first name rocketing through the sky. And for the longest time I thought, not only did I earn all of this, but I deserved it. I knew how the world worked, and according to the way the world worked, I was special. I was different. And then I went into space. And I saw what difference really is. I have touched the cold flesh of a being that is as unlike me as can be. I have looked into what I assumed were eyes and seen nothing. Nothing I could comprehend. And then, for a brief moment, I saw something I did recognize. pity. They didn't speak a language I understood, but I'm not an idiot. I could see their expressions. "You poor thing," they said. "You came all this way alone." They thought I couldn't, for whatever reason, bring more people with me. They thought that doing something alone was never something you chose. Why would you? Why would you think not to share your experiences with anyone? This is a publicity stunt. I did meet aliens, but this is a publicity stunt. I want my message to go out. We are not alone. There's a whole planet of aliens we can meet, and we don't even have to travel to get there. We just have to get out of our heads. We have to stop mistaking our mirrors for windows, that we know what everyone else is like. How can we? We're so closed off. We're in spacesuits, every one of us, hermetically sealing ourselves away. We're so afraid of common ground, so afraid that our sense of who we are will shatter the moment we open up to another. It will, obviously, but that's not something to fear. For once, let's not have first contact be pity.
So, how do we start?
I don't know. You're the interviewer. How do you do it?
I usually just listen.
Good a place to start as any. I read your books.
Thank you. The Voice of Free Planet X is written and produced by Jared Axelrod. The Voice of Free Planet X theme is by Russell Collins. This episode could not have existed without the performance of Christopher Morse and the support of listeners like you. You can support the Voice of Free Planet X at patreon.com/Axelrod, but you knew that. This is the last day you can purchase the September t-shirt of the month. Immersion Systems logo. I'm really proud of it. Liked the episode. One precious thing, you may want to get the shirt. But, today. Tomorrow, new shirt. I think it's going to be based off of Paused, the episode preceding this. There's links at planetx.libsyn.com. It'll look good on you, trust me. The Voice of Free Planet X is distributed by Galactic Public Radio.
GPR.
Oh, GPR.
Galactic Public Radio.
Thank you for listening.